even ugly, by the very experts who study the game for a living. By every rule of coaching, it should have failed. Instead, it won 2 green jackets, 12 tour titles. It made him one of the longest hitters the sport has ever produced. The golf world spent decades trying to build the perfect swing. This man built the perfect exception and used it to destroy everyone who followed the rules. His name was Jerry Lester Watson, Jr. Born on November 5, 1978, in a small town called Baghdad in the Florida Panhandle, his father gave him a nickname that would follow him for the rest of his life, Bubba, after a football player he thought his son resembled. The family was not wealthy. There was no country club, no private coach waiting in the wings. What there was a yard and a cut-down 9-iron his father handed him at 6 years old. From that age until he was almost a teenager, Bubba would circle the trees around his family home, hitting a wiffle ball again and again. Some days he practiced 5 to 6 hours. He was not working on a textbook swing. He was teaching himself how to curve a ball left, then right, then high, then low, with no coach ever correcting a single thing he did. His father had other plans for him. A devoted baseball fan, he hoped his son would follow that path instead. Bubba later explained it simply. He just had a dream that I would play baseball. I played it. I was good at it. But by high school, a choice had to be made. At high school, my dad said I had to choose baseball or golf. I chose golf. He was a little upset at first, but he got used to the idea, and it worked out. He left college early to turn professional without finishing his degree. Years later, with no announcement and no cameras, he quietly went back to the University of Georgia and completed it, telling almost no one at the time. He simply wanted kids watching him to know that finishing what you start still mattered, even for someone who had already made it. There was no academy behind any of it, no formal instruction waiting on the other side, just a boy, a yard full of trees, and a swing nobody had ever taught him to fix. Bubba Watson never took a formal golf lesson in his life. Most professionals are built by coaches, every angle measured, every position corrected. He built himself without any of that. Because no one ever taught him mechanics, he never thought in those terms. He picked a target, pictured the shape he wanted the ball to fly, and trusted his body to deliver it. Practice was not repetition at one target. He rarely hit the same shot twice, curving the ball left, then right, then high, then low, until his mind held thousands of shapes it could call on instantly. One coach who studied his motion broke it down simply. The turf sprayed left in the shape of the shot, his swing path came from inside, his lead shoulder rotated through like a topspin tennis stroke, sending the ball curving back to the right. It looked chaotic. It was actually a pattern, just one no manual had ever described. Analysts compared him to Seve, the Spanish golfer famous for inventing shots no textbook accounted for. Both trusted feel over mechanics. Eventually, his style earned a name of its own, Bubba Golf. His caddy, Ted Scott, put it in one line that followed Bubba for the rest of his career. If you have a swing, you have got a shot. That belief was about to be tested in the most extreme circumstances professional golf could offer. By 2006, Bubba Watson had reached the PGA Tour. He was already known as one of the longest hitters in the game. What he did not have was a win. Season after season passed. He came close. A 5th place finish at the US Open in 2007. Moments in contention that never quite closed. For 4 full years on tour, the breakthrough refused to arrive. Then, in June of 2010, at the Travelers Championship, it finally happened. Bubba won his first PGA Tour title, defeating Corey Pavin and Scott Verplank in a sudden death playoff. He dedicated the win to his father, who was fighting throat cancer at the time. There was no long celebration. Weeks later, at the PGA Championship, he came agonizingly close again, losing a playoff to Martin Kamer after a penalty on the final hole cost him any real chance. Then, On October 15th of that same year, his father passed away. The following year, the wins started coming faster. At the Farmers Insurance Open, he held off Phil Mickelson by a single shot. Months later, at the Zurich Classic in New Orleans, he beat Webb Simpson in a playoff. What had once looked like one lucky breakthrough was starting to look like a pattern. What came next would be the moment his entire career pivoted around, a shot that would turn a golfer known for hitting the ball far into a name golf fans would never forget. April 2012, the Masters. A playoff against Louis Oosthuizen had reached its second hole, the 10th. Both men had pushed their tee shots toward the trees on the right side of the fairway. Louis found the rough. Bubba found something far worse. His ball had settled deep in the woods, sitting on a bed of pine straw, with no clear path to the green whatsoever. From where he stood, he could not even see where the green was. The distance to the pin was around 164 yards, but the only route that mattered was a gap barely wide enough to thread a golf ball through, curving nearly 40 yards left to right just to reach the front of the green. On the broadcast, analyst Nick Faldo was asked whether Bubba had any real chance of getting the ball close. His response left little room for hope. "I doubt it, to be honest." Bubba disagreed. Before he had even reached his ball, he had already located the gap in the trees. The lie was clean, almost like a fairway lie, he said later. He closed his stance, hooded the club face, and swung as hard as he possibly could from the inside. What happened next has been replayed more times than almost any single shot in major championship history. The ball launched low, staying under the tree limbs for much of its flight, no higher than about 15 feet off the ground. Once it cleared the trees, it began to rise, curving nearly 40 yards through the air before landing on the elevated green and settling roughly 10 feet from the hole. "I hit my gap wedge, hooked it about 40 yards, hit about 15 feet off the ground until it got under the tree and then started rising," Bubba explained afterward. "Pretty easy." He made the par. Louis did not match it. Bubba Watson had won his first major championship. The tears that followed were not only about the shot. 3 weeks earlier, after years of trying and one adoption that had fallen through at the final moment, he and his wife Angie had finally brought home their newborn son, Caleb. His mother was the first person to reach him on the green. His father had not lived to see this moment at all. "I have never had a dream go this far, so I cannot really say it is a dream come true," Bubba said, still fighting back tears. A swing built entirely without instruction had just produced the most replayed shot in the history of the tournament, and it would not be the only green jacket it delivered. 2 years later, in April of 2014, Bubba Watson returned to the same course and did something only a small group of golfers in history had ever managed. He won the Masters a second time. This time there was no dramatic playoff. He closed with a final round of 69, finishing 3 shots clear of Jonas Blixt and a 20-year-old rookie named Jordan Spieth, who had briefly led the tournament before fading over the closing holes. Spieth had no complaints afterward. "That was some incredible golf he played down the stretch to hold it together and make his pars," he said. Bubba Watson is a deserving Masters champion this year. For Bubba, the emotion was, if anything, even harder to explain the second time around. "So yeah, I am going to cry because why me? Why Bubba Watson from Baghdad, Florida? Why is he winning? So I just always ask the question why? Why me?" he said afterward. "That is why I am always going to cry." The following February, that second green jacket helped push him to the highest point of his career. Bubba Watson reached world number 2, the closest a self-taught, uncoached swing had ever come to the very top of the sport. To understand what made this possible, the numbers matter. Bubba's longest recorded drive on tour reached 424 yards in 2006, and he would later hit one measured at 455 yards at Pebble Beach. He was not the product of a system. He was the exception the system never accounted for. And by 2014, that exception stood one spot away from being the best golfer alive. But the man walking off that 18th green with his son in his arms was carrying more than trophies. Underneath the trophies was a battle nobody outside his closest circle knew was coming. By 2017, the man who had twice worn a green jacket was quietly falling apart. A stomach condition had caused him to lose a significant amount of weight. His game on tour was suffering along with his body. Retirement had started to feel like a real possibility, not a choice, but an escape. Bubba later described his mind during this period as being pulled down a rabbit hole he could not climb out of. He remembered standing in front of a mirror at his lowest point, weighing 162 pounds. When I looked in a mirror at that moment when I was down to 162 pounds, all I saw was a thin Bubba, a guy losing weight, a guy not going to make it, he said. He described the feeling as the darkest of the dark, a moment where he sank to his knees and asked, in his words, for God to take his life. What followed was not a slow recovery. It was a single moment that Bubba has described as a wake-up call. It was like a bell went off and said, "Wait, if you have 10 minutes left, is this how you are going to waste your 10 minutes? And I was like, "No," he recalled. That moment did not erase the struggle overnight, but it marked a turning point. In the years that followed, Bubba began speaking openly about mental health in a sport where such honesty was rare, revealing that he had also lived with attention deficit, hyperactivity disorder, and anxiety for much of his life. I want to encourage people, men or women, to be able to talk about it and share, he said. Sharing gets it off your chest, gets it off your mind, so you can be the person you want to be. In 2021, he published a book about the experience titled Up and Down, Victories and Struggles in the Course of Life. There was no press conference for this battle, no trophy at the end of it, no crowd applauding on a green, just a man at 162 pounds deciding on his own that 10 minutes were worth more than he had been giving them credit for. The swing that once looked broken to every coach who studied it had carried him through 2 major championships. This time, what carried him through had nothing to do with golf at all. Off the course, Bubba Watson never seemed interested in fitting into any mold. He played with a bright pink driver. He formed a band called the Golf Boys and performed music videos with fellow tour players. He drove a replica of the General Lee, the orange car from an old television show. He opened an ice cream shop back home. None of it looked like the resume of a 2-time major champion, and none of it seemed to bother him at all. In 2022, that same refusal to follow the expected path showed up in his career. Bubba left the PGA Tour to join Live Golf, the Saudi-backed league that had split the sport in 2. He gave up his PGA Tour membership and, with it, guaranteed access to some of golf's biggest events. When critics pointed to the guaranteed money as the reason players like him had jumped, Bubba pushed back hard. "It makes me laugh," he said, "because on the PGA Tour, I got paid behind closed doors to show up at tournaments, many tournaments. Even the possibility of losing his spot at the Masters did not shake him." Asked what he would do if Augusta barred Live golfers from playing, he said simply that he would not want to be there under those terms anyway. "That's just the wrong way to look at it," he said. "It's the game of golf. We are all trying to be the best players." Bubba Watson still plays professional golf today, still with the same swing. Nobody ever rebuilt it, nobody ever tried. 2 green jackets hang somewhere